A Short and Easy Method of Prayer by Madame Guyon. Chapter 2. How to Pray. There are two ways of introducing a soul to prayer, which should be followed for some time. One way is meditation, and the other way is to read and meditate at the same time. Meditative reading is achieved by choosing some important practical or theoretical truth. If at all possible, you should choose the practical truth rather than the theoretical truth, and then you should proceed in this way. Whatever truth you have chosen, only read a small part of it. Try to taste it, digest it, and extract its essence. Do not read any more while any flavor remains in the short portion you have read. When the flavor does disappear, take up your book again and proceed as before, seldom reading more than half a page at a time. It is not the quantity that is read, but the way we read that is profitable to us. Those who read fast reap no more advantage than a bee would by only skimming over the surface of the flower instead of waiting to enter into it and extract its nectar. A great quantity of reading is best kept to scholastic subjects rather than divine truths. If we are to derive any benefit from spiritual books, we must read them in the way I have described. For I am certain that when that method is followed, we will gradually become used to it, and so be in a better frame of mind for prayer. Meditation, which is the other method of prayer, should be practiced at a carefully chosen time and not at the same time as reading. I believe the best way of meditating is as follows. When by any act of living faith you're placed in the presence of God, bring to mind some truth in which there is substance and spiritual food. Then pause for a long time and reflect on this truth, not in an intellectual way, but just so that your mind is concentrating on the truth. For you must observe that your particular exercise should always be in the presence of God, and your reflection on truth should therefore focus your mind rather than engage you merely in an intellectual way. It follows from this method of prayer that a living faith in God becomes immediately present in our inner soul, producing an eager and strong urge inside us which will restrain all our wandering thoughts. This quickly extricates us from numerous distractions and takes us a long way away from the influence of external objects, bringing us close to our God, who is only to be found in our inner selves, which is the Holy of Holies where God dwells. He has even promised that He and His Father will come to us and make our home with us. John 14:23. Saint Augustine accuses himself of wasting his own time because he did not from the beginning seek God through this method of prayer. This is the way to be totally spiritually attuned to God and impregnated with a real sense of the warmth of God's divine presence. In this state, all the senses are focused on God and withdrawn from the circumference to the center, and the soul is delightfully and silently immersed in the truths we have read, not in an intellectual way, but by spiritually feeding on these truths. During this time, the will is brought to life through our emotions rather than through tiring the mind with study. When I say that the emotions are engaged in this way, it may appear a difficult proposition at first, but I shall show you later on how it is to be experienced. We must allow our emotions to delight in God's presence and peacefully to drink in what they have tasted. It is as if a person has enjoyed the flavour of the finest food as it is chewed in the mouth, but derives no nourishment from it until he stops chewing it and swallows the food. In a similar way, when our emotions are set on fire, if we try to stir them up even more, we extinguish the flame, and the soul is deprived of its nourishment. We should, therefore, in stillness and quiet, with respect, confidence, and love, swallow the blessed food which we have tasted. This method is really necessary, and it enables the soul to make more progress in a short time than it would in many years if it adopted any other method of praying. I have mentioned that our principal exercise should consist in the contemplation of the divine presence, but we should also be exceedingly watchful and diligent in keeping our dissipated senses in check. This is the easiest way to overcome distractions. If they are directly confronted, they become more of a nuisance. However, when we're immersed in realizing the presence of God and concentrate on our inner spiritual lives, we win the war against everything that distracts us, even though we employ an indirect method to achieve this end. It is necessary here to caution beginners against wandering from truth to truth and from subject to subject. The correct way to fathom all divine truths, to derive maximum benefit from them, and to have them written on your heart is to continue to reflect on these truths so long as they feed your soul. Although recollection is difficult to start with because the soul has acquired the habit of always straying from home, when the soul has returned home, it will soon become used to the situation and take delight in it. This is the spiritual feast, the sense of God's presence, and the beneficial effect of God's graces, which are so great because it is God's overriding desire to have fellowship with everyone He has created.